types of resources, that is from resource and development. So the first classification is on the basis of origin. So on the basis of origin, we have biotic resources and abiotic resources. Biotic resources we get from biosphere, where life is possible. So everything which breathes, which has life, is biotic resource. It's you, me, all the animals, fishery, livestock. You can include plant life. So whole flora and fauna comes under it. Now again, on the basis of origin, we have another one, that is abiotic resources. So abiotic resources are all those resources which are natural, but they are non-living, right? For example, rocks and metals. Here I have one thing, like in my class one child said, ma'am, it can be a table. So my answer was ki, table is a man-made thing, wood can be abiotic, log can be abiotic, but not the table, right? So even going for this wood and log, you better go for to a safer side, rock, minerals, soil, right? Metal. This kind of things are better example of abiotic resources. Now we have next classification, that is on the basis of exhaustibility. So, on the basis of exhaustibility, we have renewable resources and non renewable resources. The renewable one, which you all know, which get renewed by the process of physical, chemical, or mechanical, right? So, how do it changes, right? See, we have seen rocks get exfoliated. What is exfoliation? If rock is exposed to a sunlight, right, the outer layer of rock expand during daytime and contract after sunset. So this is how the outer layer of rock becomes, with the course of time, loose. And when it becomes loose, with coming years, it gets separated from a main rock, and the separated part, the small particles which fall down downward, right, under the rock, that later get eroded by wind, water, and all, right, and it become a part of soil. So this kind of change is a physical one. Chemical, you may have seen various rocks in nature which is exposed to a rainwater. When rainwater falls down from the sky towards the earth, right, it absorbs carbon and many various other gases within it, right, and it becomes a carbonated water. Rainwater, after absorbing this carbon dioxide and other gases, it becomes a carbonated water. This carbonated water is walk like a chemical thing. When it falls down onto the rock, it drain out the many minerals from the rock, right? So ultimately, sometimes, some of them turn into a bauxite, and that change is done through a chemical, right? So we call it change due to chemical. Now mechanical changes, what are mechanical changes? If you change your wind into a wind energy, if you change your insolation, that is sunlight, into a electricity, solar energy, that is mechanical. If you change water to water, hydel power, mechanical, right? So this is how these resources get renewed one after the other, right? Now, forest and wildlife. Now we have to understand this is also given in the continuous, sorry, in the renewable one. But look at the difference. Wind, water, and solar energy, they are renewable and continuous. Means if you make use of it once, right, it do not get vanished. It get replenished or renewed one after the other, and their quantity doesn't reduce, right? But if you make use of forest and wildlife, right, it will get destroyed, and you have to give them time to get renewed. Let's take an example. If there is a 1 acre of forest, and I ask you to cut it, all the forest at once, and replace it with a sapling, will that sapling in one area, 1 acre of land, will be counted as a forest? No. Why? Because it cannot take a place of fully developed trees and the creepers and shrubs and bushes, right? So this forest take almost 50, 60, or 70 years, or maybe one human life to get renewed, right? Second one is wildlife. Let's take an example of cheetah. Cheetah disappeared from Indian forest, right? And you know why they vanished from our forest? Because their habitat has reduced. When the habitat and the area of forest reduced, herbivores are not getting any green things to eat, so their number will reduce. This carnivorous, again, they are not getting any herbivores to eat, they are dying. So slowly and steadily cheetah disappeared from our forest. In last couple of years, within last couple of years, I heard that Madhya Pradesh forest department has asked court, honorable court, that if they can borrow some cheetah from African forest, and they were allowed. Now my question is, even if this forest department, if they are able to grow the number of these cheetah by maybe in hundreds or in later on in thousands, right? And they protect them in artificial surrounding, right? And protect them from poachers and all. So ultimately, will these cheetah will be called Asiatic cheetah? No, they are African cheetah. So we have to be very careful regarding forest and wildlife when we talk about it as a renewable resource, because we have to give them time to get renewed or developed, right? And why not? Why can't we just do one thing, that we should stop buying the product which is made out of wildlife, right, and forest, and on the top of that we just leave them, stay away. They will grow by their own, right? Our interference is the one thing which is creating a problem. Now, non-renewable, according to exhaustibility, non-renewable, they are the one which get renewed in long geological time. Long geological time, you all know that all the part of earth or landform of earth is not developed at once. If you look at India, the oldest landmass we have Peninsula India. Youngest fold mountain, which was developed later, quite later, that is Himalaya. The northern plain is the most new member of that landform community in India, right? And you might have seen that Bay of Bengal, that is delta of Sundarban, is getting still developing every day. So it's under construction right now. So this is how every part of land on earth is developed in different duration, different geological time. Now see this diagram. Initially, whole earth, all the continents on earth, all the continents were one single landmass. We used to call it Pangea, but if you look at this diagram. Later, due to the internal forces, convectional forces, it got separated in Laurasia and Gondwana, as you can see. And in between Laurasia and Gondwana, we had this Tethys Sea. When this Gondwana land, right, we, because convectional force is already working, this all landmass, tectonic plates are over asthenosphere, floating over asthenosphere, but the movement is very slow. So slowly this Gondwana was moving towards the Laurasia bit by bit, right? And this Tethys Sea, which was shallow and it has a lot of sediment in it, it got suppressed by this Gondwana land, and later it get disappeared, and whatever sediment was there in this Tethys Sea get converted into a one mountain range. We call it Himalayan mountain range. So we have a Himalayan mountain range here. This is Indian subcontinent, part of that is peninsula. If you can remember, this is a part of peninsula. Later the whole northern part get developed later on, including the Himalayas. Can you see that? Now this is how, because this peninsula India was made out of igneous rocks, because the first Pangea got developed by the eruption of lava. So it's a part of Pangea, so it has all igneous rock, right? And it is rich in mineral, most of the mineral, right? Now again come back to this slide. So Mineral and fossil fuels are example, they get developed during different geological time, and they are example, the fossil fuels and minerals, they are example of renewable non-renewable resources, right? It took millions of years to be formed, and once we use these fossil fuel, it gets over, whether you take petrol, diesel, kerosene, or natural gas, right? But these minerals, especially when we take out the metals out of it, they are they can be recycled. For example, iron, you might have seen the scrap dealer, sometimes he carries these scraps from our homes, and what he do with this scrap, he sell it to the mini steel organizer or entrepreneur, where it is again re-rolled and given a some other shape, right? So some of the resource like metal are recyclable, and fossil fuels are not, right? They cannot be, they get exhausted with every use. So now come to next classification, that is on the basis of ownership. Individual resource, everything owned by you, your father, your mother, your grandparents, right? That is individual resource. We all own houses, lands, plot, that depends upon where we are living. If we are in the urban areas, we are living in a flats, right? Or maybe houses or kothis you can call, right? Or we may have a small plots, right? And other properties. And if somebody is in a rural area, they may have acres and acres of land, pond on their land, water wells in their land, pasture land of their private own land, right? So a plantation, you might have seen people growing mango trees in a large number on their land in a rural area. And if you know the CCD, they have their own coffee plantation on large scale. On the hills of that Munnar, we have a tea plantation, or in Assam and Darjeeling, we have a tea plantation, right? So these are all individual properties, right, owned by an individual person or maybe a family, right? So this is for this, we all pay a nominal amount of tax or revenue to a government of India, right? And they make ensure that that is our land, and we have a legal right to our land, right? These are some example of ownership of individual. So now let's move to the next one. On the basis of ownership, what we have next, we have community owned resources. Earlier we did uh, individual resource, now here we are doing that community owned resource. Now if you are visiting a Kabban Park, or you are visiting a Lal Bagh, or you are visiting a India Gate, have you ever stopped by anyone? No. You enjoy there, you walk, you play, you eat, right? You roam around, right? A park or this public places in nearby your town, you visit every day there, and you play cricket or football, right? That is provided by a government of India. Many picnic spots are like that. So these all areas are public places, right? Whole community has right on it. Even if it is not allowed to 1%, it means for a maintenance, then it will not be allowed to anyone. But when it is open to one, it is open to everyone. Try to understand this, right? That is community owned resource, where you don't have a paper for that, right? Because it's a government land, and government land by defect is a public one, especially the park and this kind of area, the picnic spots and all, right? Not every land, but the one which is open for a public by a government. So we can make use of it. Not only that, if even if the rural area you will go, you will find some land given by a government for a grazing ground, for a burial ground, village pond, cremation ground, right? So these are by defect, these are accessible to everyone. If one person want to uh, take a benefit of that village pond, nobody can stop him, right? Or grazing land, nobody can stop him, because that is allowed by a government or that community to everyone who are living in that vicinity. So that is community owned resources, right? Now national resource, by defect and by law, right? Every inch of all the land, all resources of India, right? That is national resource. Even sometimes we may say of as a farmer that this is my land, correct, that is their land. But if the government wants to do some development work in that area, then that farmer has to give that land to a government, and government will pay a compensation to that farmer. If you'll take a example of new township, from where the government will get that big land? It's the farmer who are having that big huge land, right? Whether we have to make a canal or roads or railway or dam, right? A new housing societies, right? These all airport, it all get developed on the land provided by a farmer, because they are the only one who are having this much of land, right? The urban people doesn't have that much. We are limited with this kind of resources, right? So technically, all the resources belong to a nation. Now, this urban development authority, they have empowered by government, right? So they can go and they can negotiate with the farmer to get these lands. One more thing, if as an individual I have a piece of land, and all of a sudden government get to know ki it has a mineral in it, then I have no right to keep that land according to the rule of this country, law of this country. I have to return that piece of land to a government, and I'll get a compensation from government. Not only that, my I have an ancestral land on which the Ganga river is flowing in certain part, in a small area. Can I call it that this part of river, Ganga river, is mine? No, I cannot. So this rivers again doesn't come under the any individual authority, that totally into the hands of nation or the government. Forest and wildlife also, we have no right, individual right. It's the government of India who will take care of all this. Land within the political boundary and oceanic area up to nautical 12 nautical mile. So 12 nautical miles means 22.2 kilometer. It is as it is mentioned here. From the coast termed as territorial water and resource therein belong to the nation. Now we know that from the coastline, we draw a baseline. From baseline to 12 nautical miles in the sea, that water and that piece of land underwater is under total control of India. If somebody will try to intrude into it, Indian government, according to the Indian law, that person can be punished or can be sent behind the bar, right? Or the proper action will be taken based on it. I'll explain this with the help of example diagram also later. So let's finish it with this, and then I'll come to the diagram that we have done about the national one, national resources. Now look at this. On the basis of ownership, this is the fourth category, international resources. There are international institutions which regulate some resources, like till 1200 nautical miles. We have a exclusive economic zone, which ठीक है, and which belongs to a open sea, and no individual country utilize these without the concurrence of international institution. Means if I have to do something beyond 200 nautical mile or about after 12 24 nautical miles, then in between 24 and 200 nautical mile, then I have to consult a UN. I'll show you how. Now look at this. This is a diagram with which we'll try to understand which one is national and which one is international one here. Right. Now look at this. This is our baseline. You can see this is our baseline. Now this baseline is drawn just after some water here, right? So now this water from here to here, why we have drawn this baseline? If you look at the coastal area of any country, you will see, including India, the coast is not a straight line. They are dissected one, they are zigzag. So this dissected and zigzag line, how do we make it that which one is baseline? So that's why we leave certain amount of water, coastal water, right? And roughly we try to draw a line, one line, which we consider as a baseline. So whatever water is inside this baseline towards the land, it can be a bay, it can be a lake or pond, it can be a lagoon, right? All these land or a part of gulf, right? These all comes under the category of internal water. Here we can play, we can uh, do water sports, we can extract a mineral, anything, any work which India wants to do, they can do it here. Right. Now from baseline, you can see this is a baseline. From baseline to 12 nautical miles towards sea, that is called territorial sea. This is Indian territorial sea, and the land under this territorial sea is also belongs to Indian authority. Nobody else has right on this land under, that is seabed, sea, and air of this 12 nautical mile is also ours. No country has authority to fly into our 12 nautical miles. No ship without our permission can move into our territorial sea. That is punishable offense according to international law. And we Indian are only allowed, Indian government is only allowed to do mining in this area. So air is ours, water is our, and the seabed is also our. That is India. Now, after this 12 nautical mile or territorial sea, we have contiguous zone. Now, contiguous zone again comes under the Indian part only, but here we have to understand one thing. This contiguous, that is next 12 nautical mile or contiguous zone, here we have right to collect tax or revenue from the ship who enters here, right? And we keep on telling those ship, now you are in our territory, you need to pay a tax and dare not to enter in our territorial water without our permission. Then we'll take a action, right? Not only this, airspace of this 12 nautical mile is also ours, and if any other countries, if any other countries plane enters into it, you know, that for that also they have to pay a revenue to Indian government because they have polluted our airspace. So is it clear? And again, we can mine, we can do all the act over here, right? Fishing and all can be done here. Now look at this. From baseline till this 200 nautical miles, till this area, we call it exclusive economic zone. What is exclusive economic zone? Economic, the word is very clear, for something with a finance, something with a money. So if we get any mineral in this bed, right, if we get any fish in this area, that is ours. India has right to mine, extract mineral from here, as well as do fishing in this area, right? But India doesn't have right to bully anyone who will enter in this part of sea, especially this part of sea. After 24 nautical miles, we have no right to stop any sea, any plane. They can roam around here, right? But economic, that is fishing and mining, is still in the hands of India. Plus, the cleanliness of this part of sea, this sea is a again Indian responsibility. Maintaining a pollution in this area, controlling it, that is a Indian authorities' job. Now, after this 200 nautical mile, that we call it high sea or open sea, that is open to all. None of us has a right, no countries in the world has a right to mine or do anything like this. Here they can move around, they can move, they can use a path, but they cannot do any economic activity here in high sea. So if at all somebody wants to do so, then they have to take a permission from UN. And do we have do being a Indian, do we have any right over here? Yes, we have been given right to extract manganese nodule from area beyond economic exclusive economic zone. So that has already come as a one marker. So see if you will get this, right? So this is how we have completed classification till ownership. Rest 2 or 3 classification will be done in next video because this is getting lengthy. Till then, thank you.